Hello YouTube, Devin here again with another helmet video, and this is on probably the most influential Kevlar helmet design ever, and probably one of the most common, just because of that same exact reason. Now, you can find this helmet in a ton of different colors and a ton of different materials and a ton of different slightly changed liner systems and everything like that. But we're going to go over the US versions today. All right. Now, this is the PASGT helmet. All right. And that stands for Personal Armor System Ground Troops. And this helmet came out in the 80s to replace the M1. So you've seen the M1 in tons of other videos before. It's the two-piece design. It has a fiber liner and a steel outer shell. So that the U.S. had been using since the early days of World War II. So this came out in the 80s to replace that. And this is a Kevlar helmet, okay? And it's got kind of a German style to it, all right? As you can see, the Americans went to the German style with the bill and the skirt, you know, not quite as flared out as the Germans' Stahlhelm design, but this is based off of the Stahlhelm design because the Stahlhelm provided excellent coverage, good weight, and protection all in one package. Germany just got it right the first time, and this is just a modern take on that using modern materials of the 1980s. So how these were made is they were made by taking a whole bunch of like 4-inch Kevlar squares and overlapping them and laminating them together in the shape of this shell. Now, the earliest versions of the PASGT, so before they became standard issue, were mostly painted woodland. You find a couple just green examples. Most of them had the woodland BDU pattern painted on them because that was what the U.S. used, because the ERDL pattern, as a lot of people call it, came out in the late days of Vietnam, and that is what turned into the woodland pattern. And the only difference between ERDL and woodland, the M81 woodland, is the fact that woodland is a little bit more spaced out. Like the pieces on it are a little bit larger. It's like an enlarged version of ERDL. So, and the fabric is different. So, but most of these you find in the ERDL pattern and color scheme, the early test ones. But pretty much all of them in U.S. standards were painted this OD green color. All right. Now, they are a 2-point chin strap, and you can see that. This is the chin strap lug right here. It's a screw. The liner is held in place. The chin strap is held in place on the standard infantry one by 2 screws. Okay. And it was... and the suspension is held in place by 6 screws all the way around the helmet. So kind of 3 on this front part and 3 on the rear. Now, some of these screws had dual purposes in later versions. Like once they added the night vision shroud, this screw would have to become longer to hold on the night vision shroud and everything like that. And then in the one in the rear, as you can see, this one isn't green because this one has the PASGT liner in it, which is this foam piece right here. But this standard one, they wouldn't come standard with this, and I'll get into that when we get into the suspension, because the shell of all these helmets between all the versions stayed the same. Okay, now these were in use with the American military, so still in service, as late as 2014 with the Air Force. Okay, the Air Force still had a lot of these helmets in stock. Now, most of them had been sent over to Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff like that, and Ukraine as aid. But as of 2014, these were still in government stocks, U.S. government stocks. Now, that's pretty decent. Now, this helmet's life ended around the 1980s. Around the 2000s, mid-2000s, by the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. All right, so those 3 branches all went to an ACH style, which is a cut-down version of this, where the skirt is brought up a little bit and the bill is cut off and everything like that. But other than that, it's still the same manufacturing process, still pretty much the same helmet. All right, the Marine Corps kept this shell, though, in all the same original specs. The only thing that they changed was they took this style of chin strap out, so these aren't in the lightweight helmet, as they called it. The Marine Corps calls it shell. You won't find these screw holes in it because their shells were newly manufactured, but you will find a lot of them with these 6. The early ones will have the 6 suspension bolts, and the late ones will be missing the rear one because they went to the pad suspension, just like the ACH. But the original lightweight helmet had kind of an upgraded PASGT suspension. So, but we'll get into the liner now, and the liner is pretty much an updated M1 style. It's made out of 1-inch wide nylon webbing. All right, that's adjusted with this little cord and a piece of Velcro here in the back, so you adjust how high it sits. How this ring adjusts with a piece of Velcro, which is right here where my middle finger is tapping, and it has this cord run through it, and the cord so like however you slide it up on, wherever you stick it on this loop pile back here, determines how wide this ring is, which means how high the helmet will sit on your head. Now this normally comes with a leather sweatband that's held in place with metal clips, just like an M1. But I replaced it with the Super Comfort, which is like a neoprene and fabric sweatband, just because it's a lot nicer. And normally you don't have these kind of black pads in them. It's just bare Kevlar. So, and it won't come with this parachutist trapezoid either. So it'll come with this 2-point chin strap, which is adjusted by M-type slider buckles on each side, and it's removed by one lift the dot snap right here. So on the left temple, you'll have a snap that holds the chin strap in place. So chin strap is moderately comfortable. You'll see 3 different variations of the chin strap. All the infantry ones had this 2-point chin strap, but you see the airborne ones have different chin straps in them. The early airborne ones were just modified versions of this, where they would take an extra piece of nylon and just Velcro it around the infantry chin strap here, and it would come back. The 2 sides of the nylon that were held on each side of the chin strap here would come back and be screwed in place back here to turn it into like a pseudo 3-point chin strap, because they realized early on that this helmet during jumps could just slide off your head real easy because it didn't have anything holding it in the back. So if you like tumbled when you went out of the plane, your helmet could just slide right off your head, which kind of ruined your protection. Also, you can't go into battle without a helmet. Well, you can, but it's not as safe to go into a war zone without a helmet. So these helmets tended to just slide off paratroopers' heads during a jump with the 2-point chin strap. So later ones went to an actual 3-point chin strap that was purpose-built to be, screwed in back here. And what it was is it was one piece of fabric, like 1-inch nylon webbing, and it would hang down to like here, and then there would be 2 Y straps that would come off of it and be sewn up into here, and then there was an extra piece of fabric that would go from this point over to this screw right here. So these are pretty much the same as the M1 style liner, except instead of being held in place with A rivets, it's held in place with A washers, which are like nuts that are shaped in little A's there, if you could see that. So, and then screws. So instead of being riveted in place, it's just screwed in place. But other than that, it's pretty much the same style. The parachutist ones, like I said, had different chin straps, and they would have these foam liners in them just for better shock absorption, because you can really bump your noggin pretty hard if you land wrong. Whereas the infantry, it wasn't too much of a problem to warrant coming out with special chin straps and stuff like that. So, and then they put a nape pad in them for the airborne too, so you don't snap your neck. The sweatband is adjusted here in the back with Velcro. All of them are, so you can adjust, older ones will have like the slider buckle to adjust the circumference. So these helmets come in a extra small, medium, large, and extra large size. So there's 5 different sizes for these helmets, and they're made by a multitude of manufacturers. You can find All the U.S. ones will be Kevlar, but there's a lot of other countries that are making them out of like polyethylene. There's a lot of the French copied this style, and they made it out of spectre fiber. There's just tons of different. The Russians make a copy of this for internal troops too. Literally an exact copy of this helmet made out of their version of aramid fiber. And you can find pretty much everything under the sun. Now, these are really easy if you're looking for a cheap surplus helmet to convert into. So if you want like an ACH style, this is going to offer more coverage than an ACH. So it's pretty much the same protection, but you're not going to be spending over $100. You can find really good, really good condition PASGTs like this. This one was made in the 80s for, 30, 40 bucks really easily if you want to take some time to look around. And you could throw different liners in there. Like if you could get some Velcro discs for like an ACH, and you could throw some ACH pads in here, and you've got all the screw holes to mount a 4-point chin strap if you wanted, or a 3-point chin strap, or pretty much if any suspension you wanted, or if you just wanted to keep it original. You could take the 2-point chin strap off and do whatever you want. This helmet is really, really customizable because of that. Because you could put brand new helmet type stuff in it, or use older stuff in it too, because it all fits as long as you make sure everything's the right size to correspond with the shell. You can do pretty much anything you want with this helmet. So you can find rails for them, you can find night vision mounts for them, you can find tons of different stuff. So this helmet is probably one of the most underrated helmets as far as Kevlar helmets go, but it's so influential. The Germans copied it too with their Schuberth. A lot of countries based their first Kevlar helmets or composite helmets off of this style because it worked. So hopefully you guys like this video here. I tried to get into some more of the history about it and everything like that instead of just going your generic helmet video and telling you when it'll stop and all the other stuff. I tried to explain all the hardware and everything to it and how it came about and why it was made and all the different versions. So I hope you guys like this format and stuff. You guys tend to really appreciate it. But if you're new to the channel, this is what most of the helmet videos look like. So I did a PASGT vest earlier today. That would have been worn in conjunction with this, with U.S. troops through the 80s and 90s and into the early 2000s. So if you wanted to see what that looked like, I'll probably do a combination video here eventually where you can see the helmet and the vest right next to each other. But until that point, feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or concerns, and I will do my best to answer those for you. And please like this video to show some support. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And hopefully you guys like the stuff. I'll keep making these videos, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye.